Welcome back from the break. Quality Forge is ready for its next speaker, so please join me in welcoming Ahmed Tikiwa, who is a senior software engineer at Disney. In addition to his work at Disney, Ahmed is a Google developer expert for Android with over 12 years of engineering experience. He has a strong passion for developing world-class applications that make a difference. Outside of his work building enterprise solutions for major telecommunications companies, Ahmed is an official contributor to Google Developers Dev Library. And today, Ahmed will be joining us to talk about Adapt or Left Behind, mastering UI in the age of Android 16. So it's very exciting to have someone from Disney here. Disney being used by everyone. I know I have it. I use it, especially on my phone when I'm traveling a lot. So it's really important to get the UI right because so many users will use it on Android.
I mean, first of all, wow, Disney. It's such a big brand and on everyone's mouth and ears. And secondly, yes, Android developer, there's so many Android users and me including, I do have the Android phone and yes, I'm using Disney Plus on Android and it's very interesting to listen to someone who could potentially be behind this application.
So it's incredible to have him. So again, Ahmed will be talking to us Adapt or Left Behind, Mastering UI in the Age of Android 16. Welcome, Ahmed. Thank you for joining
Hello,
us
Ahmed.
today.
Thank you, guys. I'm very happy to be here.
It's incredible to have you. You know what you're talking about. You are very well versed with your 12 years of experience. So we're just going to go ahead, give you the stage, and tell us about UI in the age of Android 16.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I am Ahmed Tikiwa. I am going to be giving you this talk today, which I've titled Adapt or Be Left Behind, Mastering UI in the Age of Android 16. And a brief background about me. So I am a senior software engineer in Android. I work currently for Disney, as the guys have mentioned, and part of the Disney Entertainment division. So working on Disney Plus. I used to live in South Africa, in Cape Town. I relocated 3 years ago, actually. I celebrated my anniversary, three anniversary just a couple of days ago. So I used to live in a city called Cape Town in South Africa. Right now, I now live in the Netherlands, in a city called Utrecht. I am a Google developer expert as well in Android. This is basically a program that recognizes developers who are making valuable contributions to their communities around the world. Yeah, so I've been in part of the GDE program now for 3 years as well. My Twitter or X handle is Ahmed_Tikiwa. Feel free to search for my name as well on LinkedIn if you want to connect with me. I'm also on Blue Sky as well. And yes, so the agenda for today, we're going to talk about what does the market look like. Then touching on adapting, what to do and what not to do. I'll touch on what are window size classes, which will be part of a core of the talk that I'll be giving today. Then material design and window size classes, how these two actually work together. I'll give a recap of how I added window size classes previously to an app, which I'll show you shortly. I'll introduce the scaffold layouts. I will talk about the navigation suite scaffold, then customizing the navigation. Then I'll talk about the navigable list detail pane scaffold. So this is the Apple that will be part of form core for this talk. And it's called Up Next TV Series Manager. I made this app in 2015. In fact, it was my first proper Android project that I created, personal pet project. So it is currently open source. It is available on the Google Developers Dev Library. This is basically an area where people from around the world, if you really want to know, understand Google technologies and so forth, but you need some sort of app as an example, this app is part of that library. And the code is open source. It's available on GitHub. If you would like to download it, feel free. If you'd like to contribute as well, feel free as well. I'll share a link at the end. It is also on the Google Play Store. It has been since 2015. Modest download of 2000, which I am proud of. Yes, so the app basically has got multiple screens. Its aim is just to basically give you information about your favorite TV shows. So you want to see a show's next episode, previous episode information, that type of thing. You want to see the seasons, the episodes, all that thing. So it's purely written in Compose. Right now, it is just available on Android. And so basically moving now into the core of the talk, we're going to touch on what does the market look like. So over time, the Android market has actually developed. It has evolved from when it was just a little tiny smartphone that could barely do much to now we having a wide range of devices that form part of the Android ecosystem. So you've got the Android Watch, so the Pixel Watch, for instance, Samsung also has their own version of it. You've got the smartphone. You've got a Chromebook as well, which can also display Android apps. You've got a foldable. You've got a flip device, and the list goes on. So these are basically all the different form factors that form part of this market here that has been evolving over time. Within Android Studio, you actually can be able to test and create emulators for these different form factors. So on the left there, you can see the different types of form factors and then the list of devices in the middle there that form part of that. So you can have a phone, you can have a tablet, Wear OS, desktop, TV, automotive, XR, which has now been recently launched. So adapting what to do and what not to do. So this part here will actually focus on the do's and the don'ts of what exactly adapting actually should mean and what it shouldn't mean. So an adaptive app, what it actually looks like is four key principles. The first one is an adaptive app can support displays that take up the entire device screen. So not just a tiny piece of the screen, not an app that is restricted and so forth. So your app can take up the entire device screen at any point in time. It can support displays of resizable windows. So basically what is called multi-window mode, which I will touch on in a bit. It can support displays in both portrait and landscape, not just one. It can do both. And then it can display um, the it can actually support displays in foldable device states. The do's and the don'ts. So continuing with that, resizability, which is also important. So you are basically making sure that resizability and multi-window mode is possible. The orientation. So for any display size or window mode, portrait and landscape is supported in your app. The aspect ratio. So varied screen sizes and window sizes, which like I touched on the different form factors that we have on the market, then it actually means that your app can support these different aspect ratios. Jetpack Compose. So your app is designed for adaptive UI development. So you need to make sure that you actually have an app that is really touching on the modern tools that are available right now. And then window size. So you're actually keeping attention to the app window size over the device screen size. And I'll actually touch on and show you that this is a very crucial difference. So having your app that actually focuses on the window size over the device screen size. Then adapting. So what to do and what not to do. So touching on resizability, which I mentioned earlier, the do part, you need to enable multi-window mode. You need to enable multitasking support on your app. The user productivity and the satisfaction will actually increase. So when your users actually see that you are taking care of these features, multi-window mode and multitasking, they will be prone to actually stay with your app and not uninstall it, which is obviously what you don't want. Then if the API is 24 or lower, then you need to set the resizable activity to true for in your activity for that particular activity in the manifest file. For API 24 plus, it's going to be true by default. So resizable activity Boolean will be ignored on large screen devices that are API 31 and above. Then you should not set the resizable activity to false for any scenario whatsoever. Then the orientation. So you need to remove screen orientation from your manifest. I know we like to do it or like to lock the orientation to maybe portrait because you feel that your app doesn't look that nice when it's in landscape. Whatever reason it may be, you need to remove this from your manifest file. So the window size changes will occur anyway, even if you add this screen orientation attribute to your manifest. So you should not restrict your activity orientation. The locked app orientation on a large screen device will mean that your app will be letterboxed. And this will lead to a decreased Play Store visibility. So you will kind of be punished if your app is actually not catering for multiple orientations, portrait and landscape. Then when it comes to aspect ratio, you need to adapt your app to fit the display despite the relative screen dimensions. You need to remove min aspect ratio and max aspect ratio settings from the app manifest. You need to, so as an alternative, you can also ensure that your app resizability and aspect ratio is handled automatically. So don't try and restrict these things. So don't control the relative screen dimensions. So if your screen or window aspect ratio is not equal to the app aspect ratio, then that's when your app will be letterbox. What this basically means, you can imagine your app on a tablet device. If it's not filling the full screen, it's going to be centered in the middle, and then it'll have black bars on the right and on the left hand side. That's not something that you want your users to encounter. Then just an additional point, the min aspect ratio and the max aspect ratio restrict the app aspect ratio to hard-coded values. And this is not what you want. Then touching on Compose, the recommendation, please build with Compose. XML has been long been replaced. So you can still use it within your app, but it's definitely recommended to use Compose and also to just stay up to date with the latest technologies, the developments within Compose. So don't rely on what has been replaced. So for example, the XML layouts. If you can, I would definitely recommend that you move on to Jetpack Compose. Then with regards to window size, the app window size over the device screen size, that is a do. You basically need to ensure that your app is focusing on the window size itself, not the device screen size. And I'll show you in a bit why that's actually important. You need to use the window size classes to be able to determine what the app window size is at a given time. You can use current window adaptive info. So if you're using Jetpack Compose, it's an easy API to be able to get the current window size information. So don't overlook what the classes and APIs can actually do for you. And do not calculate the window size with deprecated APIs. Always use the tools that are available right now. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. These tools are actually there to actually help you do these things easier. And you will see in a bit how nice it is to use these APIs. So I've probably mentioned quite a bit now about window size classes, and you're probably wondering what on earth is this? So a window size classes are a set of opinionated viewports, breakpoints that help you design, develop, and test responsive and adaptive application layouts. So here you will actually see an overview of what that actually means in terms of window size classes. So the with window size class is the one you're going to be probably using a lot. So you've got three types of window size classes, and you can think of them as buckets. So the first one is compact, second one is medium. So compact is basically the width that is less than up to 600 dp. Medium is from 600 dp up to 840. Expanded is from 840 upwards. They recently added a little bit more buckets. And we'll touch on the three right now, the compact, medium, and expanded within this talk. So material design and window size classes. So these two actually work together. So on the material design website, you can actually find information about the different window size classes and how you can incorporate these within your app with regards to material design. So the tools are meant to work together, and you can actually be able to really build beautiful apps using these tools that are available here. So all the information, all the do's and don'ts, recommendations of what you should show, the type of navigation, all that information there is on this site. So the guide is based on two main guiding principles. So the first one is the available window space. So the available window space is dynamic, and you will see that in a bit. So the changes with user behavior also result in the change in window space. Multi-window mode, as well as unfolding a foldable device, that will change the available window space at any given time. Orientation changes. So if the user decides to go into landscape mode from portrait mode, already that's going to change the amount of window space that is available for your app. So to touch on up next, and these are the changes that I implemented when I used window size classes. So this is my former colleague here called Michiel Besselling. We used to work together at Bol, and I asked him for help with regards to my app. And so I gave him my app, UpNext TV Series Manager, and I said, these are the screens here. And I'd like to make sure that this app is adaptive. I'd like to make sure that it caters for the other window sizes, the other form factors, and so forth. And so he asked for this breakdown of the different screens. What he then did was he then took my old designs and basically started implementing designs based on the different window size classes. So as you saw previously, my app was mainly focused on compact, but he then created designs for medium as well as expanded. And these are the different designs that he provided. So for compact, this is what he did. So basically the bottom navigation, reordering it and so forth, making sure that the logo of the app is actually more prominent for compact. For medium, the recommendation was to not use a bottom navigation bar. So this is based on the material design guidelines, but to use what is called a navigation rail. So have your navigation options on the left-hand side. And then when it comes to expanded, you can either have a navigation drawer or you can actually have a navigation rail as well. So it's totally up to you, but there are also some guidelines as to when the type of navigation that you need to show on these expanded layouts should be used. Then he also updated the internal layouts as well. So when I'm showing the information about the TV show as well, to really try and make use of the available space. So to not just have it on the left-hand side, but to make use of the left and the right-hand side, because now you have a bigger screen size. Then on expanded, using the same principle as well. So basically trying to take up as much space as possible, not to leave any empty spaces and so forth, but really just taking advantage of the amount of window space that you have available. So I'm going to introduce now what are called the scaffold layouts. And these are basically improved tooling for scaling across the different screens within the Android space. So this was originally introduced in 2024 at Google I/O. And they introduced these things called the scaffold layouts. Now, there are three main scaffold layouts. There's the navigation suite scaffold layout. There's the list detail pane scaffold layout. And then you have the supporting pane scaffold layout. So the navigation suite scaffold is basically having the right navigation option for the right screen size. So as you saw in my designs, we basically had a bottom navigation on a compact device. We had the navigation rail on a medium device, and then we had a navigation rail or navigation drawer on an expanded device. So those basically are the recommended types of navigation options that you need to give your users depending on the screen. This navigation suite scaffold can help with that. Then you have the navigable list detail pane scaffold. And so you can think of an email app. So it goes from the details, you have your list, and then it goes to the detail for that email that you've actually clicked on. Then you've got the supporting pane scaffold. Now, you can think of when you have a movie or a show or something that's right there at the top there, but then you also want to show similar options based on what the user is currently viewing. So this is what the supporting pane layout, it's supporting the main information. So the main information will be the video at the top there, and then the supporting one will be the one that's at the bottom. And then, so this is how I added the navigation suite scaffolds to my app. So I had to replace the current navigation switch logic that was within my app. So the first part is to use the material adaptive library. So within this material adaptive library, you'll find all these different tools, all these scaffolds inside it. So this is how I added the dependency. And I just made sure that I'm using material 3. Then I had initially had 3 options, different composable screens that would say compose, compact, medium, and expanded. And I'd manually switch between these 3, and you will see why this new scaffold actually just takes care of this automatically. So I had compact screen, I had medium screen, and I expanded screen. And then I defined what is called a navigation destination using enums. And there I defined my dashboard, my search screen, my explore, and so forth. Then to add the navigation suite scaffold, you basically need a controller. So this will be managed by the Remember Nav controller. You have a navigator, which will then be able to navigate between the different screens. Then you also need to remember the backstack, so the screen that the user actually came back from. So this is how you would actually define it. Then you then add the navigation suite scaffold. So their main points are basically defining what are called the navigation suite items. So these are the different items that will form part of the navigation menu. And in this case, I'm iterating through the enum that I showed you on the previous screen, and I'm going through each one of those to then display each of those items in the navigation. Then you have the content itself. So in my case, I'm using Compose Destinations by Ram Costa. And so in there, I have an app navigation, which acts as a navigation host. And then that will then display the different content that will be on the screen at a particular time based on what the user is selected. Then you can also customize the navigation. So having a navigation rail versus a navigation drawer. And so you then use the material adaptive library to be able to do this. So the main screen, you need to get the current window adaptive information. And then you then can define the custom nav type. So based on if it's expanded, you might say you want to have the navigation drawer, or you just basically want the navigation suite scaffold to decide which one is best for that particular screen. And then you then define the custom nav type. You pass that over to the navigation suite scaffold, and then it will do its magic under the hood. And then as you can see, you define when you define it, then automatically it's already adding the navigation drawer to my app. So this is how you would do it. I have my navigation drawer on the left-hand side, and then I have my content on the right. Then there are guidelines within the material design website, as I mentioned earlier. So if you have 5 or more primary destinations, then you should use the navigation drawer. But if you just have 4, it is recommended that you use the navigation rail instead. So this is how it will look like. So on my compact, I have the bottom navigation bar. On my medium, I have the navigation rail. And then as you can see on my expanded, I also have the navigation rail because I only have 4 items within my navigation. So I'm basically following the guidelines here. But now, as you can see, the magic of just using the navigation suite scaffold is already taken fold. And now I didn't have to do much. I just had to add it in, and it's already doing that nice magic that you see there. Then the navigable list detail pane scaffold. So it's a seamless list to detail pane flow. This is what I want. I basically have a list on my left-hand side. I have the detail on the right-hand side. But the goal here is to have the list and the detail on the same screen. So these are the different libraries that you can add. So adaptive navigation, as well as adaptive navigation Android. So you add these three. And this is my goal here. So the adaptive UI achieved via the nested scaffold structure. So this is how it actually works under the hood. It will have your list and your detail already assigned intelligently under the hood. So it will show the list and the detail based on the available screen size. So when it goes to compact, it'll know, oh, my screen size is smaller. I only need to display the list. When the screen becomes bigger, it will then say, I want the list and the detail. You don't have to do anything more than this, apart from just adding this. It will take care of calculating and doing all this magic under the hood, which is very nice. And then, so this is how I added the navigation suite scaffold. I basically also defined the navigation suite items, which were from my bottom navigation rail and so forth. Then you add the navigable list detail pane scaffold. You then need to define your navigator. So in my case, I created one, which will define the how to navigate. Then I defined what was in the list. Then I defined what was in the detail pane. So the heart of this is basically the navigable, the list detail navigator. And then you then provide the links. So the list detail navigator, the list pane, I created a composable that will define what is in my list, and then the detail pane, which will be also a composable called detail pane content. Then in the main sections, so the top app bar, so I added that. And then when I'm then switching based on the different screens that my user is actually viewing. So crucially, this passes the destinations navigator for detail to these top level screens. And then this navigator will then control the content, which is within the detail pane. And so I have all my different screens. And then the detail pane, I'm using the app navigation, which I mentioned earlier as part of the composed destinations library. Then the detail pane will have the app navigation as part of it. Then the destinations nav host, I then give it as well. So the navigation graph as well as the nav controller. And then what I do want is basically when the list, something from the list is clicked, then something on the detail pane will then be shown. And this is how you'd actually do it. So having an on-click action that will navigate from one side to the next. Then the detail flow. So I basically created a state that tracks if the main nav controller is showing content. And then I have a launched effect, which will then basically control which pane is visible at any point in time, especially for the compact. Then, so the current pane, it will then determine which the current pane is. Is it a list? Is it a detail? Basically have some magic under the hood there to determine what content to show at any particular point in time. Then if the target pane role, so if the detail pane is active, then it's going to show the 3-pane scaffold rule, which is basically I want to show the detail, else it's going to show the list. And you'll see how this actually comes up nicely at the end. Then if the current pane role is not equal to the target pane role, then it's going to navigate to the target pane role. Then the back handler, so as you still need to be able to handle if the user actually presses back. So you need to handle that action as well. So if the detail pane flow is active, then 2 checks are actually done. If it's on the show detail screen, it's going to navigate back to the empty state, and then else it's going to basically just go back one screen. So this is how you'd pass it within your back handler. So, and then this is how it actually shows. So now I have two of those screens now on one screen. I have my list on the left and I have my detail on the right hand side, just by using this library. And so this is how it will look on a compact as well as on a medium device. So now my compact will show normally, it will have my list and so forth. And then on the right hand side, it's now expanded. And now it knows that it's got more space. So it's showing the list and the detail next to each other, which is very nice. Then in terms of resources, so these are the different resources that you can get. So building a list detail pane layout. You can find that on the developers.android website. Building an adaptive navigation, you can find that as well there. Supporting the different screen sizes. So there is a guidance on what you need to do. So in terms of how to support the different screen sizes. Then the adaptive do's and don'ts that I spoke about, you can also see those there. Scaling across the different screens. So when I mentioned the different scaffold layouts that were introduced at Google I/O, you can actually find all that information there about when it was actually introduced in 2024. My app Up Next TV Series Manager. So that's the link there. As I mentioned, if you'd like to contribute to the open source app, if you'd like to just view the code and just see how it works and fork it and so forth, feel free to do so. Then there are also what are called compatibility checks for large screens. So you can find all the guidance there. This will basically help you to know whether your app is now fully adaptive. And I would recommend that you use this checklist because you might think, okay, my app is adaptive now, but in actual fact, there's still some checklists that you need to check off your list. Then I mentioned Composed Destinations by Rafael Costa. So that's actually what I use within my app to navigate from the different screens. I would recommend that you use it. It's a very nice library. It really takes away the boilerplate of composed navigation, which I at least use in my app right now. And yeah, so thank you very much. So I am Ahmed underscore Tikiwa on X or Twitter. You can search for me, Ahmed Tikiwa. Any of the resources that I shared today, if you like the slides and so forth, if you have any questions as well, feel free to reach out to me and yeah, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. That was incredible. I appreciate how much level of depth you really went into there. That wasn't broad. That was really signposted. That was fantastic. And it isn't just me saying that. We've been going through the audience comments as well, and they're saying these are fantastic tips and insights. As someone who's already implemented these aspects in their apps, thank you for bringing them to light. Great discussion. We've got so much good feedback. But unfortunately, I believe we are out of time for questions. So you can follow Ahmed on all his socials and track him down there if with your burning questions. But you have a lot of fans in the audience. And thank you again for joining us. This has been a fantastic, really fantastic presentation.
Thank you so much, guys. And thank you again for the invitation and everyone for the feedback. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ahmed.
Bye.